Hello, this is Mike at Gamefromscratch, and welcome to a quick tutorial on getting started using Samsung's Gear VRF project. Now, Gear VRF is a set of Java libraries for working with the Galaxy Gear VR, the Oculus-powered 3D headset from Samsung. I got one over the Christmas holidays. I've been working with it non-stop since. I love this thing. So I've been doing a series of tutorials on getting started with them. I've done Unity, Unreal, as well as Gear VR, and now I'm doing the corresponding videos to go with them. Now, if you wish, there's quite a bit of moving pieces in this tutorial we're about to go through. So at any point in time, if you need to fall back and figure out what's going on, don't worry, there is a text-based version of this available on Gamefromscratch. I'll link it in the comments down below. But Gear VRF itself, it's an in-development 3D library for working with the headset, and Java-based, and sadly enough, Eclipse-based. So that means we need to have Eclipse installed. Now, the world is mostly, we're moving away from Eclipse. It is now Android Studio, which is powered by IntelliJ, is now Google's official version of platform to work with for Java development or Android development. The problem is the NDK, or the native development kit, the C++ toolchain, only just recently got support under Android Studio, and at that point it's also only beta. So Samsung built their tooling around using Eclipse, which is the old hotness. Unfortunately, this means to get everything working flawlessly, at least for now, we got to get Eclipse up and going. Now, I'm not going to cover that process completely. It's mostly a matter of you go grab the appropriate version of Eclipse, etc. But I am going to tell you what you need. And if you go to the Gamefromscratch link, I also link to everything that is needed as we go. But what you need to do is have Java 7 or 8 JDK, 64-bit, installed on your machine. You need to have an Android SDK installed on your machine. Again, all these links are available in Gamefromscratch. Now, you also need to have installed Platform 21, which is Android 5.0.1. Newer may work, but that's the minimum version you need to have going. You need to have the Android NDK installed. Again, links are there, so don't sweat that too much. Most of those installs are pretty straightforward. They're both zips you extract out, or I think the SDK even has an executable installer version. Then you go ahead, you run the Android SDK and install a platform after the fact. Then we need Eclipse installed. Eclipse depends on the JDK being installed before it. And then once you have Eclipse up and going, you need to install the ADT, which is the Android Developer Tools add-on for Eclipse. And sadly, Google have made ADT hard to find because they no longer support it, and Google supports things for about a week and a half and then gives up on them. However, I've linked to instructions on getting ADT up and going. Basically, you just need to add a link into the Find New Software portion of Eclipse and install that. But that's the biggest challenge in all of this. You need to get Eclipse up and properly configured. And I've got all the links to the material you need already provided for you, but I'm going to assume you have all that up and going. Then the next thing we're going to need is a developer account from Oculus. Now, don't worry, these are completely free and they don't spam you by any definition of the word. But head on over to developer.oculus.com and just there'll be a sign up in the top right corner. As you can see, I already have. And then once you're in there, we're going to need to use a tool for generating pretty much an ID based off of, we need a signing key from Oculus that will allow our apps to run on our Rift device. And to get that, it's available under Tools, and it's right here. So Oculus signature file. And what you need to do is you go to your command line and you get the ID for your particular phone. I'll show you that process quickly right now. I don't have this in my path, so I need to change to it. So once your Android SDK is installed, let me try and get that a little bigger so you can see what I'm doing. Let's see, I think it's properties. Font. All right, that's going to be very big. Dev Java Android. It's in the SDK folder. It's under Platform Tools, and there's a program there called ADB. And just go ADB and then devices. Now, what you're seeing is absolutely nothing because my phone isn't plugged in. So I'm just going to quickly USB plug in my phone, which is a Galaxy S6. Now, there's another thing you need to continue this, obviously. The Gear VR only works for the newest models of Samsung phones. So Galaxy Note 4, S6, S6 Plus. I believe the S5 was supported. I'm not sure if it is anymore. So once your device is actually plugged in, run the same thing, and you get this ID right here. This is the unique identifier of your phone. Just take that, copy it, and paste it into here, and this will generate, I might as well go ahead and do it. Just take that value there, copy, paste, and download. And this is going to download a file automatically All right, it's going to in 20 seconds. It's going to go download the file that we need, the key file. And we're just going to go ahead and take that. I've already got it, so I don't, okay, there's one coming down right now. And you're going to have to include that at a later point. So make sure that you've done this step. And now we're going to need to install the library itself from Samsung. Now there's going to be a bit of a challenge here because we also need to have the SDK from Oculus, which should still be here. So we go over here, Oculus, go into the downloads, and you want the mobile SDK. There you are. You want this guy right here. So just go ahead and download mobile SDK 1.0 and extract it to a folder. Now the key is that, and let me show you here, it will extract it to a folder called OVR_SDK_mobile and then something at the end. Remove the versioning at the end. So you just left with OVR_SDK_mobile. Now the important thing is the Samsung library, which ultimately installs to a folder named GVR lowercase f, needs to be at the same root level as this SDK. So make sure that you install both of these into the same folder. So install this guy, and then for the next step, we come in and we're going to clone this guy off of GitHub. Now I've already done it. It takes a little bit of time, so I'm not going to make you watch that part, but it is available on GitHub. Where did you go? There. So just take that command, make sure you have git installed, obviously, and available in your path somewhere. Go to where you want to install it. So in my case, dev, so that it's beside this guy right here, and then just do a git clone and then that address right there. Again, it's in the links available, linked from down below. So let that clone and download. But again, it's critical that it has to be in the same folder as the SDK itself. Okay, so now that that's done, we need to copy a couple of files from the SDK over to the GearVRF file, and those are, let me just go in and find them. So everything is going to go into the same folder. We're going to copy everything into, let me see, where did you go? GVR frameworks libs. Yeah. So what we want to do is copy in system utils, VR API, and VR app framework.jar. All three of those files just get dumped into this folder right here. Now those are all available in different folders from the from in here. So the first one is in VR API, libs, Android. So copy that jar over to that folder, and then ditto for here. That guy right there, and then ditto for here. And that's it. So those three files need to be copied over before we can continue. And I know this sounds like a lot of setup work, and it really is, to be honest. It's a lot easier to get started with both Unity and Unreal Engine. So if you want the ease of use path, definitely go down that road. But this is actually something you got to do once. So now at this point, Eclipse is configured, the Oculus SDK is installed, and now the VR framework is ready to get going. So let's fire up Eclipse now, which I've already done. Oh, actually, I'm going to need a new workspace. So just a sec, I'll fire it up from scratch so you can see the whole process. All right, with Eclipse up and loaded, we're going to do a couple of things with configuration. So again, I assume you've already installed ADT, set up your platform, your Android SDK and NDK settings. If not, first off, the first one is set through preferences. No, not preferences. Help, and then install new software. So that's where you go to install the ADT tools, etc. So then we come in Windows and then Preferences. There's a couple config settings we just want to make sure that are set right. So the first one is Java compiler, and then your compliance level. And you want to make sure your compliance level is either 1.7 or 1.8. If it's below either of those, set it up to be one of those two things. Make sure that your JRE is set up to be correct, which here it actually isn't, but that one will go ahead and work. Make sure you're running the right one. So it's got to be 1.7 or higher. That one's 1.8, so I'm good to go there. There's an annoying habit of the Eclipse in Java is a lot of times it runs on an old 1.6 version, so you want to make sure you're running the right version there. And then in your Android build, so the preferences Android, you want to come in here and what do you want to do in here? Oh yeah, build, and you want to make sure that this guy is ticked off. Force error when external jars contain native libraries. So turn that guy off and it will now work properly and we're good to go. So you now have Eclipse set up right. Don't cancel it, by the way. Click OK if you're doing it for the first time. So verify that those three settings are as they are, and then now it's a matter of we got to import our frameworks code. So first off, File, Import, and go to Android and pick existing Android code into Workplace, and then browse to it. Where did you go? It's in Drive D. So wherever you installed the GearVRf framework, or GearVRf framework, sorry, it is in framework folder. So we want to grab that guy, and it'll automatically pull in. So this is basically the library itself. We want to pull it in and make sure it's going. Now, optionally, you can copy it into the workplace. I'm going to keep it in the directory to save some disk space. So this will bring in the framework itself, and this is going to go ahead and build it now. It's done. Is it done? All right. And now right-click that guy. You can hear my CPU fan spooling up a bit. And then just come on in here and do a clean, I think. Oh, sorry, up here. Project clean. And we'll let it clean all projects and go. So this will fire off. So you can see here the C++ compiler is running away. So all the native code, the native C++ code in the framework is now just being compiled. And it's actually pretty quick, so I won't bother pausing. This is only going to take about a minute tops. And if you're not getting this, if you get some kind of an error at this point, it probably means your NDK path is set up wrong or your JDK installed wrong. So make sure that either of those settings is right. There's reams and reams and reams of documentation on getting Eclipse working right. But that's it. So it's now done. Oh, it's not quite done. It's now done. Okay, so finally now we can go ahead and we're going to pull in just one of its examples. So now that the framework is built, we're just going to come in here and go File, and then Import, same process, brings us back to this menu, existing code, and then Browse, and then it's in the same directory, so dev GearVRf, and then what we want this time is a sample, and let's just pick minimal 360 photo viewer, and click OK, and finish. And here we'll do a, actually we'll just do a build on that. Hopefully that'll work. So just right click it and build it, and we should be done. Now the only thing we have remaining, however, is we've got to get that Oculus key we made earlier. It needs to be deployed as part of your app, and the easiest way is to drop that in the assets folder. So let's just go ahead. That should be somewhere in our downloads, which is right here. Let's do date modified. There it is. So just grab that SIG file and drop it into your assets. So now that'll be done as part of your build. Ooh, I don't know if it's going to complain about that name. One sec. There. Okay, so that was just because I'd already downloaded it once, so I got the duplicate file naming version. So make sure that that SIG is included in. And now you should be ready to actually run your application. So 1 second, and I'll get my device hooked up and running. Actually, I just recalled that even when I mirror it, it doesn't display right. But if you want, I'll link to it down below. I just published a tutorial on getting your phone running in developer mode, so you don't need to have it hooked into the Oculus. Unfortunately, as part of that, I also realized that I can't screencast an Oculus app running. It doesn't capture it right. But to go ahead and deploy your thing, just make sure that your phone is plugged in so ADP can see it. And to check that, you can come in here and go to Show View and Other, and we can bring up the devices window, and you can see here. So there's my phone, and it's hooked up and ready to go. If yours isn't, you either need to make sure that the right driver's in, that your cable works, etc. Just make sure that your phone is plugged in and ready to go. And if it is, then just come over here and go Run as and then Android application, and then make sure that that key is in there. If that isn't, it will crash the second you try and run it on the device. But this should go ahead. You'll see down here that it's building, and in a few seconds it will show up and run on your phone. Now, one of the things that's a challenge here is you can't run your applications, your VR applications, directly within the Oculus. You need to be signed and deployed through their store, etc., to get that to happen. So instead what it does is installs it as a normal Android application, and then when you run that application, it says, please insert into the Oculus device. Unless, of course, you're running in developer mode, in which case it will just go ahead and run. But for the most part, it loads up as a traditional desktop application that you're ready to go. And that's it. That is the installation process in a nutshell. Now, once again, I'll link to the site. There's a lot of details, small details here that you need to follow along to, and they'll be available on Gamefromscratch. But that is the end-to-end process. Now, later on, I'm actually going to probably look into a little bit more on, how to actually use the code as opposed to just configuring, getting up and running and signing, etc. But I figured that this was the area where, first off, you have to get through this to get anywhere, and more people will probably trip up here than anywhere else, especially because a lot of the documentation on Gear VR, it gets you like 80% of the way there, but then 20% of it's just wrong or outdated or infuriatingly misleading. So hopefully this will get you there 100%. If you look at my phone, the app is now installed and running correctly. So hopefully yours is as well at this point. So hope you enjoyed that. See you later. Oh, and stay tuned. I've also got upcoming videos for doing the same process in both Unity and Unreal Engine, and both are a heck of a lot easier than getting this to work, and they do not require Eclipse to be installed. However, they do still require the Android SDK and NDK, so the work you did today is going to work with either of those engines too as well, so we're good to go at that point. So hope you enjoyed that. See you later. Bye.